Match 49, Ultraman vs. Zone Fighter by Joshua Reynolds. Nobody knows why it happened, but it did. A war unlike that of any other. A war that the Earth would never see coming.
I'll
Perhaps
tell you why it happened.
Why?
It's because someone wrote it.
That works. Perhaps one of them was under a hypnotic spell, the spell of an unseen evil, a sort of alien invader demon from from a shadow realm. Perhaps nobody will ever know, but when these two forces collided, the entire planet shuddered in horror. Ugh. Like atomic bombs, they would leave an entire city decimated and thousands of children's lives changed forever. Standing on opposite sides of a Tokyo street, two Goliaths stood tall. Both.
Which street?
I don't know. You ask.
I want to know.
You tell me.
Just a random Tokyo street.
Maybe we're in Shinagawa. I'll say that. I'll have to look at the banner. Both famous for countless battles against all sorts of kaiju, demons, and aliens, Ultraman and Zone Fighter had come not to protect the planet from a new threat, but instead destroy each other. On the ground below them, on the streets, the people of Tokyo looked up in absolute awe, wondering just exactly why both their beloved heroes were here. Not wondering, not wandering. Just saying.
I have a thought why Ultraman's there.
Yeah,
Getting rid of the mind-controlled Zone Fighter from Grey Shot's match.
Ha! See, someone does read my matches.
Unfortunately.
I wonder why you put wandering instead.
Yes, I'm wondering that too. That will always be there wandering in my mind. Anyway. A cool breeze kicked up and the skies began to darken as a summer storm began to brew. Excuse me. Over Tokyo Bay, rain began to move up into the city, washing over the humanoid forms of both alien defenders. When a boom of thunder rang loudly, it acted as a ring bell and both Ultraman and Zone Fighter charged one another.
Ding, ding, ding. Let's get ready to
like
rumble.
I think more like a gong. Gong. I think it's called a gong? I think that's the right one.
Yeah, I think it's a gong.
Yeah.
You mean a dong?
Taken by surprise, the people spread apart like ants, fleeing for cover as the two warriors clashed like ancient Greek gods. The paved, man-made streets splintered and exploded into dust and debris with every footstep before the massive warriors crashed together with a powerful punch to each other's skull. Upon impact, they both stumbled back with their own trademark sounds. Zone Fighter instantly dropped to his knees, crushing cars and people under his legs before sweeping his foot out.
Wow, this is very out of character.
Well, again, it does. Well, we'll get to that later. On each side of the street, buildings exploded into carnage as the limb crashed through the wall. But the true effect hit Ultraman. Pass.
The quick leg sweep sent the red and silver Nebula M78. God, wow, that's a mouthful. Alien falling back just as he hit the ground. Just as he hit the ground, the street caving in and exploding into dust. Zone Fighter was on him. Jumping up and coming down, the giant pinned Ultraman's hands down with his knees and began smashing his fists against the Ultra's skull. As he continued to punch, Zone Fighter's fists began to become nothing but a blur as Ultraman was forced to endure the entire wrath of his opponent's oozy punches. The sounds of the punches echoed throughout the dust-filled streets as Zone Fighter's assault continued. Ultraman's faceplate began to crack, streams of red oozing out from whatever lay beneath it. As the Ultra struggled, Zone Fighter leaned up tall, the jewel on his forehead surging with almighty power. Ultraman's hands curled into fists as Zone Fighter continued to restrain him, and soon energy began to gather between his hands. A disc of jagged energy formed and began to churn like a buzzsaw. With a show of strength, Ultraman forced his arm free and lashed out with his Ultra Slash. The burning, tearing energy tore into Zone Fighter's chest just before he fired his devastating attack. A shower of sparks and smoke flew out, and the giant fell backward, his beam firing harmlessly into the black, stormy sky. Quickly regaining himself, Ultraman leaped to his feet and lifted his leg. He then brought it down like a lumberjack's axe, ready to take off Zone Fighter's head. The other alien brought up his hands, blocking the foot and pushing back. Blocking the foot and pushing back and launching a okay, too many ands. Pushing back and launching a series of missiles from the launchers on his wrists. Ultraman was taken by surprise and stepped back as the missile after missile and exploded.
And
His red silver body. Though the smoke and fire. Ultraman
and
no fighter saw to his side. His body instantly left the ground. Flew into the air like a rocket. So, Ultraman swiped his beam into the air, taking off the roofs of several buildings as Zone Fighter spiraled around in the air, dodging, ducking the lethal beam until it finally began to stop. This is your moment. Come on.
And?
Pass.
Just as the beam ended, Zone Fighter remained in the air. He pointed his fist down at the grounded Ultra and launched more of his meteor missiles.
Great shot, the joke's dead, just like someone is about to be dead.
The entire street was filled with fire and smoke as countless rockets exploded. A whole mushroom cloud of destruction spread forth, ripping the buildings apart and sending Ultraman falling back into a wall of burning fire. So he went down in the burning ring of fire.
So wait, fire burns? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I thought fire healed. Or whatever. Unless you're Gamera.
And
continue. And in the air, and Zone Fighter lowered his smoking hands and looked down, his yellow eyes reflecting the carnage he had just created. Through the wreckage, Ultraman suddenly launched forward, his arms stretched down in front of him and orb on his chest blinking red. Zone Fighter lifted his hands again, but Ultraman's arms suddenly formed a cross. Another specium ray fired in. This time there was no time to dodge. The beam struck Zone Fighter in the chest, sending a cloud of smoke and fire drifting up into the storm clouds. The blue figure wasn't finished yet, however, and as the rain doused the fires on his chest, he fired more of his missiles. Ultraman swerved to the side to come in from the side. Oh. But Zone Fighter also turned. He flew straight ahead and the two crashed together again. And again. And again. And again. Thunder boomed overhead. Thunder boomed overhead as they did, and, hovering in the air, the two began to fight it out like scorpions. So is this Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, or just regular scorpions?
Both.
Yes. I want to see Ultraman do the Scorpion. I forget what it was. I want to hear Ultraman.
Get over here!
Get over here! Get over here! Ultraman spun around. What?
Sorry, continue.
Okay.
Rude.
Ultraman spun around with a nasty kick, but Zone Fighter's hands came up, grabbing his leg by the shin. Godzilla.
No, Shin Hayata.
Dun. Wrong thing. Pass.
No, I think you still have a few more.
I think you have like
okay.
one more.
Alright. Trying to end it off early. Zone Fighter spun around and released the leg. Don't you mean the shin? The inertia kept Ultraman flying down, spiraling out of control as he threatened to break through Tokyo Tower. So, is Ultraman a terrorist? I'll just not say that again. Countless eyes watched on, fearing the worst as Ultraman's limbs spread out like he was in water. He snapped his legs shut and pointed his hands forward. Mere meters away from Tokyo Tower's red metal, Ultraman turned to the side, barely avoiding what could have been a devastating loss for Japan. Pass.
Zone Fighter instantly dropped from the sky to take chase, his hands firing more of his powerful rockets. Ultraman's head, I guess he has multiple heads now, turned over. The timer on his chest started blinking faster and faster and faster, now beeping with every flash. He was running out of power. His speed began to lessen, allowing Zone Fighter to close in. The blue figure's head began to churn with power before sending a beam of searing energy ripped out. The energy tore into Ultraman's back, making the famous warrior crash belly first into a small complex. A ball of fire quickly rose up, and Zone Fighter came down with a thud, ready to finish off his giant nemesis. What are you doing? Where was I?
I'm getting bring home Subway.
Okay, go away.
I'm not walking away slowly with it.
Okay, where was I at?
Kid, come read.
A ball of fire quickly rose up and Zone Fighter came down with a thud, ready to finish off his giant nemesis, and you're at as the fire and dust died out.
Okay. As the fire and dust died out over the course of the following moments, Ultraman could be seen in the rubble. His head was rolling and his color timer was flashing unbelievably fast. If he didn't either retreat or get recharged soon, he'd die, and Zone Fighter seemingly knew this. Zone Fighter walked steadily forward as if enjoying Ultraman's suffering. The former glory of Japan lifted his hands again, pointing his deadly bracelets at Ultraman's form. The sight of the pending doom seemed to snap Ultraman awake. Zone Fighter fired again, and just as his first rockets launched, Ultraman launched himself from the ground. A ball of fire rose up from where he once was as he climbed into the air, limbs tucked tightly at his side. Lowering the weapons, Zone Fighter looked up, and he leaped into the air, taking chase again. Ultraman looked over his shoulder, again seeing Zone Fighter chasing behind him.
Actually, let me take the next three, because I think we might have like some peeps that might have skipped out on some, so I'll just take the next three, and then Alex will finish it off.
All right.
So how many times are they gonna say again?
We'll see. The clouds above were growing darker until finally both entered the storm. In the sky, lightning crackled and rolled, striking both Goliaths with deadly amounts of electricity, but still they climbed. It was growing colder, and the water that had coated both fighters was starting to freeze. After several moments, Ultraman broke free from the darkness and could see the stars above. He was leaving the atmosphere, and as he left Earth, he could feel the sun's raw energy washing over him. Feel the sun's raw energy.
I didn't know that's a new way you could get in contact with your son.
Yeah,
The sun sends a check. He just sends a check.
Like sponge absorbing water, Ultraman's color timer absorbed the solar energy.
So
Behind
Ultraman SpongeBob now?
Behind him, Zone Fighter broke free from the atmosphere also, his reflective eyes looking on with hate as Ultraman replenished his needed energy. Stretching his arms out to the side, the energy swirled around his flashing chest until it returned to its blue-ish color. It's kind of a weird way of saying bluish. It's just a weird way of spelling it out, just putting it out there. Turning around to face his enemy, Ultraman's entire form seemed to glow in raw intergalactic power. That power began to move to his arms and gathered in his forearms. Forming a cross with his arms, that's a lot of arms, the specium ray fired out. again. Zone Fighter stopped and tried to pull back, but the beam exploded on his elbow and chest, sending the now most hated creature on Earth spiraling down. Pass to Alex, you finish it off.
I thought Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin were the most hated creatures on Earth. Alright, smoke and fire lifted up from his damaged body, but Zone Fighter refused to relent as he charged again and again. Hands clenched into tight fist and energy gathered in his forehand. Ultraman's own hand began to surge for power again. Another disc of jagged energy formed and began to replace W with a J, and you'll get something else.
Gosh darn it! Oh no! Great.
Ultraman flew.
Go ahead.
Ultraman flew forward. Zone Fighter flew forward. A flash burst between both titans when they met, and soon they both began to fall. The energy in both of them draining as they did. Their bodies began to glow as the re-entered. The atmosphere like meteors, ripping through the storm clouds again. The rain that touched them both sizzled, and steam began to rise as they parted. They both fell drifting apart as they did, but from Zone Fighter something detached itself. Eyes now dead and gray. His head fell from his shoulders. His powerful limbs flailed in the air, slowly vanishing along with his head. Ultraman straightened up his body for the landing and came down. A gigantic wall of dirt and rubble rising up on impact in a small park. Donald Trump breathes heavily from that sentence. When he turned around, Zone Fighter was no longer falling. Hikari Sakamori, the human form of Zone Fighter, fell headless to his ultimate destruction. Winner, Banner.
Banner killed Zone Fighter, anyway.
I knew it.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna have to say, like, this has an interesting premise. I kind of like the idea that both heroes are fighting for, apparently, for this sort of darker reason. I don't mind the fact that this kind of took a darker approach as opposed to what they would actually do, spar. I do like the fact that this is supposed to be a full-on fight. That said, it is more heavily inferred that Zone Fighter is, like as mentioned, under a hypnotic spell. Even though it tries to keep it vague, I think it's more heavily hinted that Zone Fighter is the villain here. Just from the way it's phrased, it's like Zone Fighter is obviously the villain of the story. Which I find a little, And again, I like the idea,
and
but
again.
I do feel like, I don't know, it just felt more like a heartless, a little close to a heartless fight as opposed to Ultraman trying to talk to Zone Fighter and try and talk him out of it. Because we know Zone Fighter's able to talk, I believe, right?
So, the plot twist, Zone Fighter was a Garoka spy the whole time.
Yeah, I know, right? Wouldn't that be interesting? But yeah, I do feel like there are elements in this match. Like I said, there are good ideas here. I just feel like they could have been amped up more to make it more vague or more tragic when Ultraman killed Zone Fighter. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
No, I can agree with that. It's very much. I wish there was a little bit more of a backstory to this, but the fight is solid. But again, it doesn't really use any. It doesn't really play to the other two, and you can tell at least by Joshua, he knows Ultraman more than Zone Fighter, in the fact of his movesets and the way that Ultraman is very much more in Ultraman shape, kind of, but Zone Fighter is not.
Right.
For instance, Zone Fighter is supposed to scream out his attack. It usually says his attacks.
Yeah. Alright, don't get me wrong, it's an early match, which generally we don't get any sort of heavy character development. At least not until the Baggin trilogy. I think that's where we finally start getting some emphasis on storytelling in KWCs, but... But yeah, this is a good matchup, and I don't mind the idea of the two heroes literally fighting each other in a non-friendly fashion. I do not mind that. But I just kind of wish there was a little bit more elaboration with kind of the story of this, because I do want to feel bad when, whoever wins, the other hero loses, and make it feel sorrowful as opposed to just kind of, oh, he's dead. sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like Batman v Superman.
Yeah, exactly. I hate to compare it to that, but yeah.
Except
you won't
less
be wrong.
horrible.
But yeah. Joe, did you have any other?
One of them should have been shouting Martha.
Yeah.
Yes.
More swatches and more meteor proton beams.
Yeah.
But yeah. Joe, did you have anything to add?
It's just kind of your MM match, if that's
Boring.
a good way to describe it.
Mhm.
Kind of.
Smells funny.
Yeah, it smells funny. Especially since Ultraman kind of looks like a fish in the banner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ultraman always kind of looked awkward in the banner. Zone Fighter looked good, but Ultraman always looked kind of awkward.
Yeah, like I said, he looks like a fish.
Even the way he's posed just seems kind of awkward. It's like, are they supposed to be facing each other, or it's just kind of weird. It's like Ultraman's looking at something else, and Zone Fighter's like, "Hey, dude, what are you doing?" But yeah, Alex, did you have anything to interject?
Usual match. Nothing. I mean, it was interesting with the in-depth analysis that you and Brayshaw were going under, but yeah, it was just your special. I mean, really, the only notable thing about the match is Zone Fighter's debut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And he gets. Hey, at least again, at least the KWZ doesn't have a stigma of having a monster introduction always win.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So that's always been kind of a thing once in a while. It's like not all debut monsters get their first wins. Well, anyway, that was match 49, and we will see you guys next time for match 50. Take care, everyone.